She'd been sitting opposite this woman who was meant to somehow know more than her. This woman who was holding her hands upturned towards Danny, waiting to scoop all of her words up and turn them into something that was digestible, something that was kinder to bear. Danny hated her. She didn't like the way she put her head to the side as Danny faltered halfway through a sentence, or the way she wore clothes that were like the opposite of the armour that Danny wore, clothes that were meant to portray a softness, a universal understanding. The first time Danny had gone, she had said, "You don't know me?" And this woman had nodded, had agreed, hadn't seemed put off by the spikes and the rough, jagged lines that she protected herself with. It had never been her idea to be sitting there every week. Sometimes Danny tried to hurt the woman by telling her things that Danny had done, bad things, the things that kept her awake at night. But it was always her that ended up crying. And the woman would slowly pass her tissues and say, "That's us for today. I want you to stay with some of these feelings, maybe write some of it down for next week. Be kind to yourself, Danny, and remember, this is your journey." Danny would walk down from the hill from the big old house towards the sea. She would walk out along the New Haven pier, waves licking the soles of her trainers as she found herself time travelling. It was easy to cry there. The harsh cold of the edge of coast, painful on her face and stealing her tears for the dark clouds that hung above her head. Back at home, with feet bare on her bare floor, she played her music like it would push all of the wounds back together. She danced alone in her living room in circles to songs that held her tighter than any arms ever had. Danny could feel the city around her, keeping her composed until she let herself remember who she used to be. She moved the room about with her mind. All of the furniture hovered way above her head. She opened the drawers in the kitchen with her mind, and knives and forks and spoons paraded around the bare bulb on the ceiling. The fairy lights that snaked across her wall broke free and wrote haikus in front of the window that kept the night out. It didn't matter about what the woman had said. Danny knew she was magic. More than the scar tissue that was knotted in twists of silver skin across her heart. Beyond a patronising sentiment about survival, she had a secret. Her powers were harnessed by the fear that she had kept in boxes that were unreliable structures that had disintegrated over the years. And now, it seemed everything was becoming undone, and it was becoming harder for her to control the magic that flooded her veins. In the days between counselling, Danny went to work. She would pause outside the big Tesco's, trying to resist to turn it into rubble, and smoked pointless cigarettes that were only a way to pause time slightly before she had to push other people's food along a conveyor belt. In her head, she watched the flowers of her potential wilting. Her hands trembled with the pain of his words as blades forever cutting all of the heads of sunflowers that faces fell still upturned towards the sun. This woman had summoned him back from years of being gone. Battles that Danny thought she had already won were turning out to be abandoned games of chess. He was the coat on the back of her bedroom door at 3 a.m, standing over her as she slept. He stole her breath, and his hands squeezed her dreams like he still wanted her dead. She would wake up choking, sure he was there. So she would let her mind run free. All of her things become a theatre above her. Childhood objects created a kind of circus. She borrowed stars, pulling them in through the window, letting them light the corners of her room, so she knew she was safe. So she knew she was still alone. All of these things kept you safe and alive while you were living in a difficult situation, but you're not there anymore, and these tools are no longer helpful to your life, the woman said to Danny. This week, I want you to try to be present in your life. Allow yourself to exist. Danny told her that she was magic, and that her mind could move almost anything. The woman said words like disassociation and talked about trauma, the kind that starts when your body is too small to escape. Danny tried her hardest to move the woman's scarf into her mouth, to choke her, to prove a point, but she felt so tired that nothing happened. As she left, the woman touched her lightly on the shoulder. Danny didn't shrug her away. The afternoon felt too painful to bear. She wanted to phone someone, but wasn't sure who would answer. She climbed Calton Hill and sat at the top, her legs over the edge hidden in long grass. The edge of her world was just a mound that looked like the hunchback of someone carrying their love long after it had left. From there she could trace the streets so far down they looked like lines that were drawn on a page. She tried to move the lines about to make the streets look like words written in graceful loops. She tried to move everything she knew, like she always did. Like she could rewrite the city that had always known her. She wanted to make the earth beneath her a letter, but carrying the city just felt too heavy. She let the streets fall back into their normal lines and grids. Then for the first time, she noticed her feet, solid on the soil under them. Everything in her life had always seemed better up in the air. Danny let her mind be still. The cold air tried to take the curls of her hair with it. She scraped it back of her face, tied it tightly back. The grass she was sitting on felt good in her hands. She saw the world properly. She felt it holding her weight. There were possibilities everywhere she looked. Danny was sitting on top of the earth. It was suddenly just there, and for the first time, so was she.